All right, let's dive right into this explainer and uncover the biologically irreplaceable role that fathers play in their children's development. It's honestly one of the most exciting yet surprisingly least talked about areas of infant research. Today, we're going to look at the exact science of what happens when a dad simply gets on the floor and plays with his baby. Because it's not just goofy sounds and dad reflexes, right? It's an ordinary moment with an absolutely extraordinary biological and neurological impact. So, ask yourself, what is your baby actually thinking when you're just messing around with them? Well, the answer reveals a biological secret that most fathers never even realize. When a dad plays with his kid, the baby's face changes differently than at literally any other time. Their body responds differently. Something incredibly powerful activates. We're going to go past what the baby's doing on the outside and look directly at what they're thinking, feeling, and neurologically building on the inside during these interactions. So, part 1, the infant-father attachment mystery. For the longest time, science genuinely struggled to measure a father's true impact on a developing child. And the main reason? The traditional tests used by researchers were just entirely mother-centric. They were basically looking for the wrong signals. To understand why, we have to look at the historical data. Using something called the strange situation procedure, researchers continuously failed to pin down the exact dynamics of infant-father attachment. Now, this procedure is designed to assess a child's need for a safe haven when they're distressed or separated. And it turns out that's a brilliant predictor for infant-mother attachment, because a mother's sensitive care provides exactly that safe haven. But when researchers applied this exact same stress test to fathers, it tacitly assumed that tender, loving care during distress was the primary way fathers bonded too. The data just wasn't adding up, and that unique infant-father dynamic stayed a total mystery. Which brings us to section 2, 2 different kinds of play. To actually solve this mystery, researchers had to look in a completely different direction: play. This beautifully highlights psychologist John Bowlby's 2 vital attachment variables. See, a child needs parents to provide a secure base, sure, but they equally need a gentle push to explore away from it. Maternal play tends to be more verbal, face-to-face, and soothing, really firmly establishing that secure base. Paternal play, on the other hand, is completely different. It's much more physical, unpredictable, and highly arousing. Both are incredibly valuable, and both are absolutely required by the developing nervous system, but they serve 2 totally different foundational purposes. Researchers actually have a specific name for this distinct fatherly style. They call it activation play, and fathers biologically drift toward this. Even when researchers explicitly tell dads to play gently and calmly to match a more maternal style, the dads naturally drift right back toward this physical, mild challenge, throwing the baby gently in the air, making surprising sounds, unexpectedly changing the pace. And what's super fascinating is that this isn't just some cultural phenomenon. It's been replicated across dozens of studies, multiple countries, various socioeconomic groups. This play isn't socially conditioned into fathers, it arises completely naturally, and the baby's developing nervous system responds to it as if it's been waiting for it all along. Moving on to section 3, the brain on activation play. Okay, so what is literally happening inside the baby's brain when they're being tossed in the air or surprised by their dad? Well, during this thrilling, unpredictable, yet entirely safe stimulation, the baby's brain looks completely different than it does during any other kind of interaction. Their physiological arousal just skyrockets. Their attentional system sharpens intensely. You see way more regions of the brain becoming active, creating this massive integration between the emotional brain and the regulatory brain. And on their face, you'll see a specific pattern of expressions that psychologists call positive challenge. Wider eyes, electric attention, rapidly cycling between excitement and delight. They're experiencing something a bit difficult and surprising, and they're absolutely loving it. And here's the kicker. This specific brain state cannot be replicated by toys. No way it can be replicated by screens, and it can't even be replicated by maternal play. Let's look at section 4, building neurological courage. This right here is where a father's goofing around quite literally shapes a child's entire future. We're not talking about courage like, fighting off a bear. We are talking about neurological courage. That's the capacity of a nervous system to approach something totally new, uncertain, or mildly challenging without just completely freezing in overwhelm. By learning that a surprising moment, like being tossed up high and safely caught, is actually perfectly safe, the baby is learning a massive foundational lesson. Their nervous system is learning that surprise does not equal danger. They're realizing that the edge of their comfort zone is actually a survivable, pretty wonderful place to hang out. And that leads right into the development of epistemic cognition, which is basically the capacity to reason about uncertainty. When a dad builds up to something unexpected, specific predictive circuits in the baby's brain light up. The baby is generating expectations, and when that surprise arrives and it turns out to be safe, the brain gets this flood of crucial feedback. This is exactly why your kid laughs at the exact same ridiculous trick 14 times in a row and then begs for a 15th. They aren't diminishing the lesson. They are neurologically practicing how to manage positive anticipation. They are literally learning how to safely look forward to the unknown. But, what happens when things don't go perfectly? Every parent knows that moment when playtime suddenly tips into overwhelm and the crying starts. Actually, taking play too far isn't a failure at all. If the father stays present, soothes the child, and repairs the situation, he is giving that baby an absolute masterclass in emotional regulation. The baby learns that, yeah, emotions can tip over, excitement can become a bit too much, but a trusted person is right there to bring them safely back down. That repair process builds just as much resilience as the fun does. Which leads us to Section 5, the long-term payoff. To see how this all compounds over a lifetime, let's look at this landmark 16-year longitudinal study out of northern Germany that finally managed to capture the dad's vital role. To crack the code, these researchers used a new assessment called the SCIP scale, that's Sensitive and Challenging Interactive Play. Instead of testing fathers and toddlers in those artificial, highly stressful separation tests, they just tested the parents in normal, distress-free exploratory playtime. They just wanted to see how parents supported and gently challenged their child's play. By finally changing the testing method, the profound truth of paternal attachment was right there in the open. And the long-term payoff from this study? It's just incredible. So at 1 year old, the mother's sensitivity of care predicted the child's quality of attachment. Makes sense. But look at what happens later on. The researchers assessed the dad's play quality using that CDIP scale when the kids were between 2 and 6 years old. When they followed up with those exact same kids at age 16 using the adult attachment interview, the results were completely stunning. At 16, the father's play quality from back when they were toddlers was the only factor that predicted the teenager's security of attachment. Think about that. Infant mother attachment and the mom's play scores didn't predict emotional security at 16, but the dad's early active play totally did. Section 6. Why dads need to play. So, what does this incredible science actually mean for you today? Well, the biology here actually runs in both directions. When fathers engage in this active, physical, playful interaction with their babies, they get a massive spike in oxytocin, the bonding hormone, both during and right after the play. It's actually a much higher increase than fathers who engage in quieter, more verbal forms of caregiving. So this activation play doesn't just build up the baby's brain, it powerfully deepens the dad's own attachment and bonding too. The father is securing a unique relationship that simply can't be replicated any other way. I really want to highlight this specific quote directly from the research. You are irreplaceable, not as a backup for the mother, irreplaceable. Your specific form of play, the activation, the challenge, the pure unpredictability wrapped in total safety, it provides something that the developing brain specifically craves, and that absolutely no other relationship reliably provides. Kids who get this regular active play show a way higher willingness to approach new situations, they tolerate frustration better, and they have far better emotional regulation overall. So the simplest takeaway from all of this is just get on the floor. Seriously, don't wait for the perfect moment or for when the chores are done. Get on the floor right now. Be completely ridiculous. Be unpredictable. Do the exact thing that makes them laugh 14 times, and then, do it a 15th time. Because it might feel like you're just goofing around on a random Tuesday, but you are literally building a person, one laugh at a time. You're making them braver, more regulated, and infinitely more ready for a world that, let's face it, won't always be predictable. So I'll leave you with this to think about. What is your baby waiting for you to build in their brain today? Because they are waiting, they're reaching, and they are totally ready for it. I really hope this explainer has forever changed the way you look at a simple afternoon of playtime. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this fascinating science, and I will catch you next time.